Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 2. I just wanted to give another update on the constellation Leo and the signs in the heavens. And I actually have a lot that I want to talk about, as you can see from all these tabs up here. And I've had these tabs up here for several days, or at least 2 or 3 days, and I just haven't been able to make a video for one reason or another. But as you can see, there's so much that I want to bring up and talk about, and I really don't know where to begin. I don't plan out my videos, I don't rehearse what I'm going to say, so please just bear with me as I try to get some of this information out. But as you can see from the image here, you can see that Jupiter is still by the feet of Leo, and Venus is in between the feet of Leo, and the Sun is technically, I believe, in the constellation Leo at this point, but it's not fully in the constellation Leo. And one theory that I wanted to present is that it could be that the Sun, being in Leo or being in any given constellation, could be God's way of, in effect, shining the spotlight on a particular constellation, as if it's time for that particular constellation to shine. So I believe that even if it gets to the point where Jupiter may technically be in the constellation Virgo, which it may already be technically in the constellation Virgo, even though it hasn't entered into Virgo yet, because you see the stars that make up Virgo's head right here, and Jupiter has not entered into Virgo. It's still outside of Virgo just visually, but technically it may have passed the border or what have you to where it's technically in Virgo. But it could be that as long as the Sun is in the constellation Leo, it could be irrelevant whether Jupiter has technically gone into Virgo or not, because it's the time of Leo the entire time that the Sun is in Leo, and Jupiter is still close enough to Leo as well as Venus to make it be a part of the constellation Leo, as well as a part of the prophecy concerning Leo that's recorded in Genesis 49:10. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, and I want to fast forward these dates again to some future dates that are very important once again, and show you how it appears in the night sky. But before I do that, I just want to mention that I had talked about the constellation Coma in my last video, which is now considered to be a deacon constellation for the constellation Virgo, but it actually used to be a deacon constellation for the constellation Leo. And you can see Coma right here in the night sky. You can see the Alpha star over here, the Beta star, and the Gamma star. Those are the 3 brightest stars in the constellation Coma. And as you can see, it seems to form just an angle or a corner right here. And as you can see, it's in between the 2 constellations of Leo and Virgo, which is very important because I had talked about this in my previous video. I had talked about the Sphinx and how the Sphinx actually points to this particular point on the zodiac. It points to the point just between Virgo and Leo, and just the fact that the Sphinx is a statue of a lion with the head of a woman tells us that, or is an indication that we should start the zodiac with the constellation Virgo, that's the beginning, and then go all the way around, and then it ends with Leo. But in addition to that, the statue also points to that particular point on the zodiac. That was a relief that was located in the Dendera temple, which the statue also points towards. It points towards the Dendera temple, and inside the temple on a tomb ceiling was a zodiac relief, and it actually points to that particular point on the, or it pointed to that particular point on the zodiac. Okay, now getting back to the constellation Coma, if you recall, the word Coma or Kama in the Hebrew, it actually means the longed for or the desired one. The one who is desired or longed for, and it refers to the desire of all nations. And as I had pointed out in my last video, that in Genesis 49:10 in the Greek, instead of using the word Shiloh in the prophecy, it uses the term the expectation of the nations will come. And it also talks about the gathering as well. And getting back to Sky Live, you can see Coma depicted over here. It's in between these two constellations, and if you look at the images for Coma, this is the illustration that I showed in my last video. It's a virgin holding an infant child, but if you look at this image of how it's depicted with just the stick figures, you see that it basically just depicts a corner or an angle. That's all there is to this constellation. It's just a corner or an angle. And it's very interesting that the alpha star is named Diadem, which means crown. And so you have the alpha star here, the beta, and the gamma star. And as you can see it here on Sky Live, you can see the alpha star, the beta star, and the gamma star. And the alpha star, the name of it is Diadem, which means crown. And you have just a corner or an angle. That's all there is to this constellation, and it's right in between the constellation Leo and Virgo, which is where the Sphinx points to, as it talked about here in the Gospel of the Stars. And what else is interesting is that the Sphinx is located where the Great Pyramids are. And this is something that you may or may not know, but this was done by some research by David Flynn. He had actually written a book about this, and I haven't read the book, but I have known about this for years, that he had measured the height of the temple if it were to have the top cornerstone, the capstone, placed on the temple. If it were to have that placed on top, the height of the temple would actually be 5,776 inches. And we are currently in the Hebrew year 5776. And this year is quickly coming to a close. The next Hebrew year will be 5777. And incidentally, there's a star number in Virgo's head that I had talked about in my last video that just happens to be the number 5777. And then, of course, 9 is the number for judgment. So whether all this is coincidence or not, I'm not really sure. I'm just pointing it out that these numbers seem to match up with the Hebrew year. And you have this number located in Virgo's head. It's actually in between the tail of Leo and in between these two constellations, between the head of Virgo and the tail of Leo. And you see this star showing up right in between the two, which is actually very close to where Jupiter is now. You see the beta star over here for Virgo, which I had talked about in my last video. It's a star Tebi Yahweh. That's the beta star in the constellation Virgo, and you can also see it here in Wikipedia. It has an alternate spelling right here, but you can still make out the word Yahweh, which is really the tetragrammaton in the Hebrew for God's name, which is Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. And you can make that out here, even in this alternate spelling. And then the first part of this word is the Hebrew word for beautiful. And then you see the shortened version for God's name, which is Yah, in this alternate spelling as well. So this star means beautiful Lord. It's located right in between the constellation Leo and Virgo. And if you fast forward this to the August 27th conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, which a lot of people are calling that the Bethlehem conjunction. It's a very important conjunction because Venus and Jupiter are the two brightest planets, or the two brightest stars that can be seen, or brightest bodies that can be seen in the night sky next to the sun and the moon. First you have the sun and the moon, and then the third and fourth brightest planets are Jupiter and Venus. And you can see this will be a very profound conjunction, and it's going to take place right at the head of Virgo, right where this star is that's called beautiful Lord or beautiful Yahweh. In addition to that, it will be directly below this corner piece right here, this angle, the constellation Coma, which means the desired or longed for one. And Jesus is the true cornerstone. You can see that here in the scriptures where Jesus is referred to as the head of the corner. And I'll just read 1 Peter 2:7. It says, "Unto you therefore which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made head of the corner." And the word for corner in the Greek is this word right here. And this, as you can see, it means external angle, so it means angle or corner. And you can see it right here, and this is the word that is used for words like octagon or pentagon. It's the last part of those words, and it means angle or corner. And so you see the shape of an angle or corner right here in the constellation Coma, which in the Hebrew means the desired or longed for one. And the alpha star of that constellation is named Diadem, which means crown. And it's showing up right above the conjunction of Venus, which represents Christ, and Jupiter, which represents God. And it's located right at the head of Virgo, right by the star, which means beautiful Lord or beautiful Yahweh. And just shortly after that is the Feast of Trumpets according to the Torah calendar, which will be on September 2nd. And that will be year 5777. And as you can see from this image right here, there's a star right between Virgo's head and Leo. That's the number 5777, 9, and the Hebrew year that's coming up on the Feast of Trumpets is the year 5777, and 9 is the number for judgment. And you see the star over here that means beautiful Lord in the head of Virgo. And I'm about out of time in this video, but I have a lot more to share, but I'll have to do that in the next video. Thank you.